So the question is, since plants and animals obviously are less crazy than us, right? Then are they more intelligent? Now that's a good question, because plants and animals, at least in the sense that we would mean, they have the so-called privilege of not having a self-reflective consciousness. Complex one, of course, because I'm not talking about self-reflective in the sense of recognizing oneself and so on, but of self-reflective consciousness, the one that makes you be both creative and develop, but also overly creative in terms of thinking, emotions, in terms of creating extremely layered emotional, mental, but also spiritual and intellectual worlds. And when you don't have that, you have less of a contradiction. You have less of the duality that self-reflective beings need to go through. For instance, when you have a self-reflective consciousness, you can develop self-hatred, because you are conscious of yourself, and then you don't like yourself, and then you begin to judge yourself, and so on and so on. So you create two instead of one. And that makes us really miserable. So all this grief and anger and guilt and so on, when we talk about when there are complex emotions and complex thoughts, this is because for instance, we suffer from another phenomena that is related to self-reflective consciousness. We die. We are passing phenomena that will die, and that knows that it will die, and thinks about its death, and writes poems about its death, and writes philosophies, and develops the philosophies about what happens after you die, and then develops all kinds of fantastic stories and mythologies about what happens after you die, and can lie down in bed and think, I'm going to die one day. And so this can only happen if you have self-reflective consciousness, you see? So then there is fear, but not fear. We'll talk about fear tomorrow. So, but don't be afraid. It will be okay. We'll talk about fear. So, so yes, we have to endure that, and this is the problem. When self-reflective consciousness is at its early stages of development, it is a disaster. Okay? It can be experienced as punishment. It's like, why do I have to be conscious? Why can't I be like a tree, like a cloud? He says all day long that we are clouds and so on. I don't feel like a cloud. So definitely not light, airy, and whitish and all that. So, and floating in the sky. So self-reflective consciousness at its early stages is really terrible, and because we need to know how to master it. This is actually the process of human evolution, learning how to finally use self-reflective consciousness correctly, not as a self-destructive mechanism, but as a way of developing awareness, developing the capacity of consciousness that is not duality, but consciousness that is actually, that goes beyond duality. We think that our self-reflective consciousness is meant to be self-torturing because it is directed to the personal self, you see? So we constantly think about ourselves, we constantly experience ourselves as the center of the universe, but self-reflective consciousness is not for that. It is ultimately for the universe to be aware of itself through us. Self-reflective consciousness is like, when it is no longer used by an ego, is the most beautiful thing in the world. And then it is intelligence, then it is wisdom, then it is beauty. So it is a gift and a curse, and it is up to us what we want to do with it.